Hi, everyone. I'm Katie Couric, and thank you for joining us from wherever you are watching all around the world. Today, convened by Global Citizen together with the European Commission, leaders from around the world are coming together to support one of the most pressing items on the global agenda in years. This work is being done by the global health organizations participating in a coordinated effort called the ACT Accelerator to research, develop, and equitably distribute COVID-19 tests, treatments, and vaccines to all those who need it, regardless of where they live. Through this pledging summit, we are going to dive into what that means, the challenges we will face, where this moment sits in the arc of global health history, the disproportionate impact of COVID on marginalized communities and people of color, and hear from the leading minds in philanthropy and science, as well as powerful agents for change from the entertainment world. Today, I'm joined by Malika Kapoor in Hong Kong, Aisha Sasay in Los Angeles, Keir Simmons in London, and we have Morgan Radford in New York, who will be keeping us up to date on the pledges. Positive strides toward COVID-19 containment and tracing are being made every day, and the most brilliant minds on the planet are working together to find a vaccine. But the global health crisis we've been living through together is far from over. There's a long road ahead, and we must use this moment of unity to move forward globally and ensure no one gets left behind. For weeks, members of the Global Citizen Advocacy Platform have been taking actions to call on government leaders and private sector and philanthropic champions to pledge and pledge big towards this once-in-a-generation crisis. Take a look.
Calling on everyone to contribute to our common fight against coronavirus. Thousands of people have shown that they care. It makes a difference.
Over the next 2 hours, we're going to be hearing from leaders from Switzerland to Qatar and UAE, from the United Kingdom to Barbados, who will be taking to our virtual floor to commit their nation's support. But to kick us off, to the person leading this charge, President of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen.
President von der Leyen, in your view, what's the world's roadmap for ending this pandemic?
It is so great to be here with you. And indeed, we will only end this pandemic when it has been ended everywhere. And that means every person in the world having access to tests, treatments, and vaccines, no matter where they live and where they are from or what they look like. We need to invest in producing vaccines at unprecedented speed and scale. And a task of this size can only happen if the world unites. We need our best scientists to work together. We need our global health organizations to join forces. And we need governments, business, and philanthropists to step in and provide funding. Tens of billions are required. And this is why on the 4th of May, I launched a pledging marathon to bring world leaders together. We raised almost 10 billion euros. And I'm so grateful to all those who pledged money. But we need more. And this is why the European Commission teamed up with Global Citizen and with artists. You know, I trust their power to bring people together, to mobilize their energy, and to trigger change. We need to rebuild communities devastated by coronavirus in a fair and in a just way. And this is why I'm happy to announce that Team Europe today pledges another 4.9 billion euros to help vulnerable countries finance their recovery from the pandemic. This is thanks to the close partnership between the European Commission and the European Investment Bank.
That is phenomenal news, welcomed by so many around the world. But as we talk about the issue of vaccines, which ultimately will be the I guess, if you want to say, the magic bullet to ending all of this. That's the hope, certainly the one will be achieved quickly. We talk about vaccines, but we also keep hearing about vaccine nationalism. How do we counter that?
Well, I am a firm believer in vaccine multilateralism. To think that you can beat this virus by vaccinating only your own people while neglecting the others is just plain wrong. I mean, we live in a very connected world. No country will be able to go back to normal while others are still fighting the virus. So first we need a vaccine, then we need to make this vaccine affordable. And for that, I'm trying to convince high-income countries to reserve vaccines not only for themselves, but also for low and middle-income countries. And this is what our campaign, Global Goal, Unite for Our Future, is all about. This is a stress test for solidarity. And this event here gives me hope.
I like that it's a stress test for solidarity. So when you look at today's event, what does success look like for you?
Well, since this crisis started, we have already achieved a lot. We have built a network of states, global health institutions, philanthropists, and businesses to provide a common answer to coronavirus. We started to collect money for a global response. We have built a system to coordinate the efforts of all players involved: scientists, global health organizations, industry, logistics experts, public authorities. And we did all this from scratch. None of this did exist. None of this was ever done before. But the task will only be completed when vaccines, tests, and treatments are available and affordable to every child, women and men who needs them. And today's event brings us one big step closer to that aim.
President von der Leyen, thank you so much.
Thank you.
As the largest multinational funder of prevention, diagnostics and treatment to fight the world's deadliest infectious diseases, the Global Fund is working to pool funds to lower the cost of the diagnostics and therapeutics developed for COVID-19, purchase life-saving tests and treatments, and ensure access to the quality personal protective equipment necessary to safeguard frontline health workers everywhere. Take a look.
Hi, I'm Dr. Zolelwa Sifumba, a medical doctor from South Africa and a survivor of multi-drug resistant tuberculosis. Today, I want to highlight the work of the Global Fund. The Global Fund has to date helped save 32 million lives. In the fight against COVID-19, we must leave no one behind. Funds are urgently needed to provide countries with the tools that they need to fight COVID-19 and to continue to protect healthcare workers all over the world so that we can continue to save lives. Only a global response can fight a global pandemic. To beat COVID-19 and save lives, we must all unite to fight.
The FIFA Foundation believes that football can make a difference in society. And millions of people around the world benefit from football power to promote change. Now, we are coming together to defeat COVID-19. Today, I'm pleased to announce that my team and I are joining forces with the Global Fund to support its COVID-19 response. It is just the first step in our partnership. To defeat COVID-19 and save life, we must unite to fight.
The only way we will beat this virus is by working together as a global community. As Katie said earlier, today we are going to see significant pledges from across the international community in a truly momentous effort. Spain, a leader in both the research and treatment of COVID-19. Belgium, the seat of the European Union, and the United Kingdom joining us on the heels of their successful replenishment of Gavi, the Vaccine Alliance. Take a look.
Hola, soy Pedro Sánchez, el primer ministro de España. El COVID nos ha puesto en peligro a todos y en todas partes. nos ha recordado algo muy importante y es cuán frágiles somos. Pero no tenemos que olvidar que ha golpeado con mucha más fuerza a los colectivos más vulnerables. Solamente juntos, juntas podremos terminar con la pandemia y además hacerlo sin dejar a nadie atrás. Es la hora, en consecuencia, de dar una respuesta multilateral. Es la hora de actuar. España lo va a hacer y por eso apoyamos desde el principio al ACT Accelerator para erradicar el COVID de forma equitativa, sin dejar a nadie atrás, sin excluir a nadie. Hemos demostrado nuestro compromiso financieramente y hoy, nuevamente, quiero llamar a todo el mundo a que se una a la campaña Global Goal Unite for Our Future. Debemos movilizarnos para que la crisis sanitaria no provoque una crisis de derechos humanos, para que nadie sufra aún más por motivos de ingresos, género, color de piel, orientación sexual, identidad de género o cualquier otro tipo de discriminación que desgraciadamente afecta a millones de personas en el planeta. Según avanzamos en la desescalada y miramos hacia adelante, tenemos que construir un futuro mejor, tenemos que sacar lecciones también de lo que nos ha ocurrido. Se lo debemos a las víctimas del COVID, se lo debemos también a los profesionales de la salud y a todos aquellos que han garantizado los servicios imprescindibles. Quisiera agradecer a Global Citizen, a Gaby, a Miles, Cyrus y al resto de organizaciones esta gran iniciativa.
In these trying times, we realize how vulnerable we are and the fact that no one will be safe until everyone is safe. For this reason, Belgium steps in with a global effort. Our prime focus is on the growing food crisis as a result of COVID-19. For this, Belgium pledges 11.5 million euros to the World Food Programme. Belgium also doubles its annual WHO contribution by pledging 4 million euros in order to reinforce health system in vulnerable countries. It is an honor to work together with all these people using their unique gifts and talent to unite people across the globe in a strong partnership with Global Citizen and the European Union. Action like this clearly illustrate that we are all global citizens fighting for the global common good, because united we stand and united we will succeed.
At this month's virtual Global Vaccine Summit and at the EU-organised pledging event in May, world leaders came together to fund the fight against COVID-19. They achieved much, but the battle is far from won. In great swathes of the world, home to billions of people, the disease is still accelerating, and none of us can say for sure what the future holds. So the race for a vaccine, for better treatments, for quick and reliable tests, that race must go on, and we must keep our foot planted firmly on the accelerator. And that's what we're doing here in the UK, where scientists have made the life-saving breakthrough on dexamethasone treatment, and where researchers at the University of Oxford and Imperial College London have vaccine candidates in advanced clinical trials. And if and when an effective vaccine is found, wherever it is found, whoever finds it, then we, as world leaders, have a moral duty to ensure that it is truly available to all, because this pandemic threatens every one of us. Defeating it is the most important shared endeavour of our times, and when we do so, it will not be a victory for one nation, but a triumph for all humanity.
Time is not on our side. We need a fast, fair and effective plan which brings the world together around one shared objective: ending the COVID-19 pandemic. A plan that prioritizes healthcare workers and vulnerable groups wherever they are. The ACT Accelerator is that plan. It's united all the key players in the fight against this disease: governments, health organizations, scientists, the pharmaceutical sector, and civil society. By mobilizing the world's collective brainpower and pooling resources, it's our best shot at ending the pandemic. Billions of dollars have already been raised toward the plan, but much more is needed to develop and distribute diagnostics, treatments, and vaccines. Because where you live shouldn't determine whether you live. Act now. Act together. Act to end COVID-19.
I'm delighted to host this incredible panel, and I want to begin by extending a very warm welcome to Her Excellency, the Prime Minister of Norway, Erna Solberg, artist and activist Miley Cyrus, co-founder and CEO of Global Citizen, Hugh Evans. Good to see you all, and thanks so much for joining us. Madam Prime Minister, I'd like to begin with you. Norway has been leading vaccine research and development for years. And from your point of view, from the discussions that you're privy to, where do we stand right now with regards to the development of a vaccine for COVID? What are you hearing?
Well, the most important thing is that there is a lot of good projects on its way. There's a lot of the work that's been done through different initiatives, but especially through the CEPI, the Alliance for Vaccine Development, has a lot of candidates. We don't really know which one will be the best, and probably with different vaccines. But now our policy part is now to also focus on how do we distribute, how do we make sure that this vaccine, when ready, is fairly distributed throughout the world. We believe that, of course, the promise of leave no one behind, which is below all of the Sustainable Development Goals, should lead us also to make sure that we are on the vaccine as making sure that those who are the most need for a vaccine gets it wherever you are living in the world. And as part of the global goal, United for Our Future, Norway supports, of course, the work of the ACT Accelerator. And we know that the time is of essence. If we are not investing today, if we don't have the tests, if we don't have treatments and vaccines in a record time that we are needing them, the pandemic will be even bigger, and we have to stop the pandemic everywhere because it is a global crisis. And that's why we also have said that the Gavi COVAX AMC was established to assure lower income countries will have access to the COVID-19 at affordable prices. And I'm pleased to pledge $10 million to the Gavi COVAX AMC now as the first building block in the global COVID-19 vaccine procurement facility, on the top of the rest that Norway has done to make sure that there are produced vaccines.
That's amazing, and congratulations for doing that. We do need more countries, more governments, more leaders like you taking that big step to help find this vaccine and to make sure it reaches the right people. Hugh, one quick question for you. When we talk about pledges and raising funds, one question that comes up often is that of accountability. How are these pledges tracked?
So Global Citizen has on our staff and in our volunteer base a full-time impact and accountability team. And that team is dedicated to tracking every single commitment made by either a world leader or a philanthropist or a private sector leader in response to our campaign, from promise right through to delivery and measuring the impact. And we maintain regular contact with the decision makers on the progress that's been made. We know that sometimes we have to hold feet to the fire to make sure that people follow through on their commitments. We've only had to do that on very rare occasions. Most world leaders, thankfully, when they make a commitment, they're proud to follow through on it. Occasionally you have a change in government or you have an external circumstance that leads to a new political environment, and then you need to have a new conversation. But we also employ a third-party validation system to measure the impact via what we call a lives set to be affected standard, outlining how policy and financial commitments translate into real lives impacted as a result of our campaigns. For example, when a world leader makes a multi-million-dollar pledge, we follow that pledge dollar for dollar right down to the life where it's impacted the geography, the project, and how ultimately that benefited that person and that community.
I want to turn to Miley next. And Miley, you've been really vocal in the last couple of days and weeks, calling on leaders to pledge for this campaign. Why this campaign? Why are you throwing your support behind this campaign?
I have been really passionate about justice, and equality. And this campaign is all about making sure that everyone everywhere has access to the tools and solutions to end COVID-19. And I knew that I had to get involved, and I wanted to use my platform as an artist to do my part in helping raise the funding needed for testing, treatments, and vaccines. And social media can be an amazing tool to connect us around the world and give us, the power to have people like world leaders hear our voices. And as an artist that's very connected to my fans, I knew that they wanted a way to make a difference. And so urging them to take action and call on world leaders and decision makers, especially in a time like this, has made a very impactful, huge difference. So I'm honored to work alongside Global Citizen in their goal.
Madam Prime Minister, you talked about what's really important now is to make sure that medicines or a vaccine reaches people who need it the most. How can you ensure that the medicines actually reach people who need it the most, regardless of cost, regardless of which company has made it, and regardless of which country makes the vaccine first?
Well, first of all, we have to make sure that we work together between countries to make sure that there is a system of procurement and financing that makes it possible for poorer country to access the vaccine in an affordable way. Then, of course, we have a long-standing operation around Gavi of, in fact, making sure that the vaccine comes to the right places. This is why we have these great numbers that we have seen on on fewer deaths among small children, because we are vaccinating much more today, because we put up an infrastructure to Gavi that makes this function. And when you work with a combination of Gavi and national governments, I think we have a very good way of dealing with the distribution of vaccines. But of course, we need to get up the money, and that's why we are pledging more money for the Gavi functions. And the next thing we also need to make sure is that other countries are participating in this, because we will not be able to deliver vaccines to the poorest in the poorest countries without the poor countries getting more help to buy them.
As you said, Miley, everyone is affected by this, and this is something that cuts across generations as well, not just different races or communities. How can people in your generation really step up and take action and make a difference? What can they actually do about it?
My generation is hungry for change and is leading that charge in many ways. And I've just been a student over the last few months, and especially over the last few weeks in my home country. I've been a student of these organizers and being able to learn and educate myself, which that's kind of what my time is filled with at this moment, even through Global Citizen, just educating myself. And I think that's the first step to making change. And for myself, and only speaking of myself, is I've really spent the last few weeks just getting educated. But I do know that my generation is hungry for change and is leading the charge for the progress in many ways. And one way is that young people are using their voices every day to demand that change. And especially now in this activism, even though changes take time, we want it to lead to lasting change. And something that has been kind of in my mind was, wanting to go back to normal, but this new normal of, we don't want to go back to the way things were before. We want to go to a more improved, inspired way of life. And so I'm just honored to team up with Global Citizen now, but then also for the future. And again, just educating myself and encouraging my fans to do the same.
On that note, I want to thank all of you. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you, Your Excellency. Thank you, Miley, and thank you, Hugh.
The COVID-19 pandemic has made isolation and uncertainty our new pervasive reality. But it's a reality that has long been the norm for refugees like Mahmonir, who shot and created much of the video you're about to see. Take a look.
My name is Mahmonir. I am 18 years old. I am from Afghanistan, and I am living in Athens, Greece as a refugee. My family left Afghanistan because of the war, and we wasn't safe.
In the beginning, I felt very lonely because my mom wasn't with me, and I have to stay with my father and brother. I am taking classes and I made new friends, but It's hard to find a real friend, and this is what I found in Adele. Now we are living far apart because the refugee journey is not one of our control. When the COVID-19 pandemic hit Greece, we were told to stay in our homes. I thought about Adele every day, and it helped me, knowing she was going through the same thing. We fantasize about planning for our future, what to do, where to travel. When one of us is upset, the other one tries to make us forget.
When you are an immigrant, you are always in quarantine. Whether you are in the camp or at home, you don't have a freedom to travel on your own or whenever you want.
Unfortunately or fortunately, COVID-19 has made the quarantine of immigration to be more difficult than it is. But it also caused a series of good things. Corona forced all the people in the world to understand the immigrant's life. And now everybody is in the same situation.
We are all human. It doesn't matter that from where you came, from where are you from, like. We are all human.
Johnson & Johnson is moving at record speed and working with multiple partners on the development of a vaccine utilizing our proven technology, with clinical trials starting in July. In parallel, we are expanding manufacturing capacity to supply more than 1 billion doses of the vaccine globally in 2021. We are committed to bringing an affordable vaccine to the public on a not-for-profit basis for emergency pandemic use. By working together and harnessing the latest science and technology, we will stop this pandemic.
When we look to tackle a crisis like COVID-19, one thing is clear: we cannot do it alone. We need to join together, government, business, and philanthropy. The Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation has for many years been a leader in global health efforts, and with COVID-19, they're once again on the front lines.
When it comes to a COVID-19 vaccine, there's still so much the world doesn't know. Who will develop it? When will it be ready? How will it be distributed? But there's one thing health experts do know. If we want the shortest possible pandemic and the fewest lives lost, then we need to make sure that the people who need the vaccine most get the vaccine first. This won't happen by chance. In the past, the question, who can access a breakthrough drug or vaccine, has often been answered by another question: who will pay the most for it? But a bidding war is a terrible strategy for fighting COVID-19. The world has to follow the science. That means protecting people who are at most at risk for catching the virus, like healthcare workers on the front lines. It means protecting people who might suffer complications if they're infected. It means protecting them no matter who they are or where they live. Very few have the expertise to actually develop a vaccine or a treatment, but all of us can support this work. We can make sure the benefits of science are distributed in a smart and fair way. Together, we can end this pandemic with breakthrough science and the best of humanity.
This decade is critical for achieving systemic change. We must have governments that work for the people to reduce inequality, improve health access, fight the climate crisis, and ensure we're back on track to meet the SDGs. At Wallace Global Fund, we believe philanthropy has an obligation to spend more. We are proud to announce that we will spend 20% of our endowment this year, and we challenge our peers to double their own giving, putting funds to use when they are needed the most.
The Foundation for Innovative New Diagnostics, or FIND, is leading efforts to accelerate development and access to diagnostics as part of the global response to the COVID-19 pandemic. FIND is testing the test, essentially, helping to unblock bottlenecks in the global supply chain and bringing together the global diagnostics community to really address inequalities in testing at a time when high demand and panic have caused shortages of tests and a supply chain war.
Hello, my name is Debbie Imperador, and and I'm a scientific officer in our pandemic preparedness program at FIND. One of the activities that FIND is doing to support the COVID response, especially because tests are so vital, is working on testing the tests. So trying to understand and get good data on how the current tests perform so that countries and regions have the information and can understand how to use the test properly. One of the biggest challenges right now is trying to get good information and good science out there as quickly as possible, especially now during a time where misinformation and misunderstandings are high. The work can be extremely exhausting. Information is changing constantly and there's always new information coming out. But I know that this work is important because diagnostics are vital to finding, isolating, and treating COVID-19.
With this global health crisis has come a major economic downturn. While not every country is able to support the fund financially, there are many other ways to be part of this coalition. Take a look.
Although every country has been affected in different ways, we all need effective tools against the virus. Above all, we need a vaccine to prevent its spread. And when we find that vaccine, it must be available to everyone. New Zealand will join with Gavi and others to make sure developing countries, including our Pacific Island neighbours, have access to the vaccine as and when they need it to protect their communities. This is a time for us to come together to achieve a global solution. As long as one person is at risk from COVID-19, we are all at risk. As we say here in New Zealand, he waka eke noa. We are all in this together. Noho ora mai. Stay safe, stay well.
Este es un momento frágil para el mundo, pero también es la oportunidad de demostrar de qué estamos hechos, que a pesar del distanciamiento, nuestro corazón debe estar más cerca de quienes más lo necesitan. Es muy importante que los países ricos ayuden a los países menos privilegiados con recursos para combatir la pandemia y así reducir el impacto en la población más vulnerable. Ningún país estaba preparado para un reto tan grande como este. La humanidad no estaba preparada para un reto como este, pero juntos podemos ganarle la batalla a este virus.
We recognize the importance of research and development, including the development of vaccines and their accessibility and affordability, diagnostics and treatment, as well as the availability of personal protective equipment equitably to all population groups.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. معالي السيدة أورسولا فان دير لين رئيسة الفوضية الأوروبية، أصحاب الفخامة والمعالي والسعادة، السيدات والسادة، السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. بعد ذي بدء فإنني أود أن أتقدم جزيل الشكر لمعالي رئيسة الفوضية الأوروبية السيدة أورسولا فان دير لين ومنظمة جلوبال سيتيزن على مبادرتهما في تنظيم هذه القمة، والتي تأتي استكمالا لجهود الفوضية الأوروبية المبذولة لمحاربة فيروس كورونا كوفيد-19، وبالتالي مساعدة وإنقاذ البشرية جمعاء من خطر ذلك الوباء. إن هذه المبادرة لا هي خير دليل على الدور الريادي الذي تطلع به المفوضية الأوروبية لإرساء الأمن والاستقرار العالميين.
We need to continue to remain vigilant. We also remain hopeful that a treatment and a vaccine against COVID-19 will be discovered in the immediate future. We are therefore actively participating in the World Summit on the COVID-19 vaccine. And when science does its job, we will be at the forefront of the fight to make the vaccine a global public good and not just a means of making profit. The vaccine must reach every corner of the world and be accessible to all. Because when the threat is universal, its treatment must also be universal.
In unstable countries, COVID-19 has exacerbated the burden on millions of children, usually girls, who've been thrust into roles as head of household, caring for siblings as the pandemic hits their communities. Take a look at Ingrid's story.
Hola, soy Ingrid, tengo 16 años, vivo con mi mamá y mis hermanas en Guatemala. Mis papás se han quedado sin trabajo, a veces trabajan horas extras para ganar un poco más de sueldo, ya que la economía bajó completamente. Ya que mi mamá trabaja, a mí me toca que ser la ama de casa. Y ahora mi rutina es cuidar de mis hermanos, hacer mis quehaceres. Mi mayor preocupación es dejar de ir a estudiar y atrasarme en mi educación.
Nosotros luchamos por eso, luchamos para que nuestros hijos vayan a estudiar y ahorita está preocupante porque ellos no están estudiando y también pues para mí la base principal es que ellos estudien.
Me da miedo que este proceso sea lento porque sabemos muy poco de esta enfermedad. Me preocupa mucho que esta vacuna se tarde en venir a Guatemala porque somos un país empobrecido y nuestro sistema de salud es muy débil. Mi consejo es que se cuiden, que cuidemos nuestra comunidad, porque ahorita estamos pasando por una situación muy difícil y ahorita estamos como una gran familia.
When global citizens took action by calling for the billions of dollars needed for testing, treatments and vaccines, our world leaders listened. Here now to help us reach our funding goals are the European Investment Bank, a generous and vital supporter of the European Union leadership, Sweden, who had stayed true to their long tradition of ambitious development aid by stepping up in the fight against COVID-19, and an essential partner in our collective efforts to fight this virus.
It is my pleasure to join you today. Thank you, President von der Leyen, for your leadership, and to all participants for your contributions. Last month, the European Investment Bank Group pledged 2 billion euros for vaccines, diagnostics, and health systems. At the EIB, we are fully committed to a sustainable economic recovery following the pandemic. We will provide roughly 5 billion euros of financing for this purpose outside the European Union as part of the Team Europe efforts. This is our initial response, and more will come as needed, working together with our European and global partners. Thank you very much for your attention.
In a time of crisis, there is no alternative to acting together. I would like to thank Global Citizen for today's event. I would also like to thank the European Commission for its dedication and coordination. This pandemic has shown us that inequalities within countries and between countries make us even more vulnerable. Leadership and guidance are needed from the UN Secretary General, from the WHO, and from us heads of states and governments on how to make vaccines, treatments, and diagnostics accessible to everyone based on needs, not means. National priorities must go hand in hand with global solidarity. It is not until this pandemic is over in all countries across the world that we can all feel safe. Now, more than ever, is it important to give the WHO the mandate and the resources to carry out its work. Sweden will give 46 million euros to the work of the WHO. We are a committed partner in the fight against COVID-19. And our common response must be based on human rights and shared responsibility. Thank you.
LISC is one of the nation's oldest and largest social enterprises. Every day we invest in stronger communities and greater economic opportunity for millions of people. Thanks to the financial support of P&G and its secret brand, LISC is expanding our Small Business Relief and Recovery Fund to sustain women and minority-owned businesses. It's one way that we are helping lay the groundwork for recovery in communities hit hard by COVID-19 while also investing in a stronger, more inclusive national economy for all.
So far today, we've seen massively impactful pledges from Sweden, Spain, the UK, Greece, Kuwait, along with pledges of support. Unite for Our Future is already seeing millions to advance the treatment and testing for a COVID vaccine. Gavi, the Vaccine Alliance, has protected a generation of children from deadly, debilitating disease. With the onset of COVID-19, Gavi is uniquely placed to lead that global effort to ensure that everyone, everywhere, has access to vaccines so that we can prevent infectious diseases and also rebuild health systems and ensure safer, more prosperous futures for children, parents, and communities. Take a look.
My name is Tabani Maposa. I'm the Managing Director for Country Programs at Gavi. To date, we have reached 760 million children across the world. That is almost half of the world's children, and we are looking at reaching another 300 million in the coming 5 years. During COVID, one of the most challenging things for us has been the inability to sustain essential health services, including immunization, which means that the risk of diseases like measles, yellow fever, meningitis, and others is very high. Personally, I have found it challenging to work remotely from home. Our work is always with the countries, and when we are not able to reach them, it is quite a challenge.
It's my pleasure to be joined right now by Nikolai Coster-Waldau. He is an actor, a UNDP Goodwill Ambassador, and he's very passionate about environmental justice and advocacy. So Nikolai, thank you so much for joining us. It means a lot to have you here.
Thank you.
Let's jump right in with COVID-19. I mean, amidst all this devastation we've seen around the world, some have noted some positive effects on the environment. Can you talk about some of those small gains? And frankly, are those gains sustainable?
Well, I don't think they're sustainable. I wouldn't want to have a pandemic for the next 20 years in order to lower the CO2 emissions. I think that, no, it's been, I think for a lot of people, it's been obviously a shock. I mean, you know, you never thought this could happen. But I think in the countries where you've seen politicians listen to the experts, the medical advice, and then go out and say this and this is the situation, it's horrific and it's going to be tough. But we all need to do this together. And if we do it together, we can work through this. And you've actually seen all over the world, people listen and take action. This is an opportunity because we've known since the Paris Agreement that most of the countries in the world have pledged that we understand that climate change is real and we have to take action. Well, now we actually, we've been forced into making massive investments on our infrastructure, on our, everywhere. So hopefully, and I believe that will happen, hopefully, fingers crossed, the green change will happen. We will move away from fossil fuels because we have to.
Take us back to the beginning, though, for a minute. Can you explain the relationship between having a strong environment and other issues that lead to healthy communities, like nutrition, education?
If you're really hungry, if you don't have access to education, if you, like for a lot of girls and women in this world, if you're not even allowed to enter the conversation, I think the last thing that really is on your mind is climate change. If my kids can't eat, if I'm hungry, and that's going to be my focus, and then I'm going to do whatever it takes to feed my kids, then you can't ask of me to worry about my CO2 emissions. It's just not fair. It's not the way it works. So obviously we have to go to the core of these issues. We have to accept that sharing is a good thing. We have to share our wealth because there is enough to go around if we're willing to do that. And we have to be willing. I mean, one thing that this has shown, this is COVID-19, of course, is that this pandemic finds every corner of the world. It doesn't care. You're not, just because I live in this perfect country, it doesn't care. It's gonna find us. And of course, the same when it comes to climate change. It affects all of us. The recovery now, and which is so important, it's so important that we talk to our leaders about it, that we demand this from our leaders. that this time the recovery can go hand in hand with climate action, and to make this transition that we need on a global scale.
You talk about action, and just a moment ago you talked about some of the opportunities that women and girls all around the world still do not have. You have 2 young children. What is your hope for your daughter's generation?
Well, I think that first of all, you look at the young generation now, and it's very inspiring because they want to be involved. They want to take action. They want a better world. You know, they want a future, and obviously, what I want for them is inclusion. That they can, that being a woman should not stand in the way for whatever opportunities you may have in life. But I hope that now we will all step up to the plate so they have a future.
Nikolai, thank you so much for making time, and thanks so much for all the work you're doing to, frankly, make this world a better place.
Thank you.
COVID-19 has underlined the importance of connectivity like no other crisis before. Since March, Vodafone has been working to ensure that no one is left unable to connect. Ensuring our networks are robust, we're supporting those providing critical healthcare, we're supporting communities and businesses of all sizes, and we're enabling governments to keep citizens safe through the effective use of data to fight against the coronavirus.
We have seen with devastating clarity that a virus anywhere is a virus everywhere. And that's why nations around the world are coming together in remarkable ways to pledge their support in ending the COVID-19 pandemic. Take a look.
This event highlights the critical importance of ensuring that everyone, everywhere in the world, has access to COVID-19 tests, treatments, and therapies. As such, we in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia has welcomed the launch of the ACT Accelerator on the 24th of April. We are proud to take part in this pledging event and urge everyone to continue supporting COVID-19 initiatives.
No one will be safe until the entire world has equitable access to a vaccine. We partner with Global Citizen, the European Union, and Global Goals, United for Our Future campaign, with the aim to make sure everyone has access and no one gets left behind.
Este enfoque de México se centra en los grupos más vulnerables. Nuestra principal visión y misión se centra en la distribución equitativa para encontrar una solución que vaya estrechando las brechas de desigualdad. Desde México estamos muy comprometidos con el trabajo coordinado que se realiza con la Unión Europea, con Global Citizen y con la campaña Global Goal, Unite for Our Future, para que ninguna persona se quede atrás.
We need a treatment and a vaccine, one that is accessible to everyone, irrespective of one's race, economic might, or political power, irrespective of which country or continent we come from. We are facing an enormous challenge, yet this also gives us an opportunity to show that we can join forces, because it is the weakest among us that will determine our real strength. Slovakia is not standing aside. We contribute financially and through our scientific findings. We are in this together, and together we shall overcome.
At the Rockefeller Foundation, we see inspiring stories about how so many of our partners are taking care of each other and serving the world's most vulnerable families at this critical time. We believe everyone should have access to COVID-19 testing, treatment, and vaccines, regardless of who they are or where they live. So we are increasing our investment in a data-driven, global pandemic response, because we are all in this together.
The United States has contributed over $140 billion in global health assistance since 2001, thanks to the generous support of the American people. The US has had a proud history of leaning in to address health issues like AIDS, polio, and Ebola. Let's hear now from the current administration on their global response to COVID-19.
As always, when faced with a global challenge, Americans rise to the occasion and lead. Today, the United States is proud to announce an additional $545 million in funding to help combat the COVID-19 pandemic and prevent future pandemics. This new assistance is part of our All of America approach to benefit the global response to COVID-19, which includes more than $12.5 billion in assistance from across the U.S. government to support vaccines, therapeutics, diagnostics development, preparedness efforts, and humanitarian assistance, as well as $4.6 billion in donations and assistance from our private businesses, nonprofit groups, charitable organizations, faith-based organizations, and as always, the American people. Together, we must work in an open, transparent, and supportive manner to build a safer, more resilient world. We must be the true multilateralist in the best sense of the word, working toward the common good. To that end, the United States welcomes high-quality contributions from other donors and looks forward to continued collaboration with all of our international partners to combat this deadly pandemic.
Edin Dupu, Dr. Phumleze Lambo-Nguka, Angelique Kidjo, Chebet Chikumbu, thank you for being with us. Madam Executive Director, if I could start with you, 2020 marks the 25th anniversary of the Beijing Declaration, an incredibly important international agreement that really propelled gender equality and the realization of women and girls' rights. There was a lot being planned around this, all of which has been disrupted by COVID-19. How is UN Women adjusting to this reality? And critically, how do you intend to move the dial forward for women and girls?
To mark Beijing 25, we created the campaign Generation Equality with very specific areas that we're going to focus in. But guess what? These are the areas that COVID has showed up to be significantly challenging for women and girls. So gender-based violence, we have had to ramp up our efforts there, but also commit governments to greater facilitation of services that women need. Women's economic empowerment and economic justice, we've had to ramp up, but now take on board fiscal stimulus that governments are providing, which are not getting into the informal sector and small business and family business, and put that together. And of course, innovation and technology, another topic for Beijing 25 Generation Equality. We have had to say close the digital divide and close also the gender gap in that digital divide.
And Eddie, you are one of the Secretary General's 17 Sustainable Development Goal ambassadors. How do you see your role right now in helping shape the response to this pandemic?
Right. So my role is to illuminate for the Secretary General, for the United Nations, for world leaders, the ways in which the confluence of global shocks that we are experiencing and bearing witness to, how those shocks are all interrelated, right? So we are living at a moment where COVID-19, the deepening economic downturn, and racial justice are very much interconnected. The same people that are bearing the brunt of the crudest manifestations of climate injustice are the same people who are disproportionately impacted by COVID-19. And these are the same people who are further plunged into extreme poverty. So what that tells me is that the emperor has no clothes. We need to be able to bridge the gap between international development and social justice. So I'm deeply concerned about our inability to have an intersectional conversation about the confluence of global shocks that we're currently bearing witness to.
Chebet, as the head of Global Citizen in Southern and Eastern Africa, talk to me about your view of how you ensure that the vulnerable women and girls aren't being left out in the fight against COVID? And specifically, talk to me about, how this all relates to the continuing push for those SDGs to be achieved.
Thank you, Aisha. We are playing an active role in mobilizing and galvanizing young people, primarily between the ages of 18 to 35, on these issues of global importance, amplifying those voices, as Eddie has said, and really providing them with the opportunity to take meaningful action to drive impact toward the achievement of the global goals. We also see ourselves playing a responsibility in helping young people to learn about the systemic issues involved, and really filling those knowledge gaps. So for example, as part of our content production through the lens of COVID-19, our team is increasing awareness around not just the short-term effects with the COVID relief, but also the long-term effects in terms of what it'll take to build resilience and to rebuild our economies and communities. Through our coverage of the pandemic, we're also paying special attention to fragile health systems, so in some of those hard-to-reach places that Eddie has described, and marginalized communities that need our collective commitment and support to overcome this pandemic, help avert the next one, and rebuild our world back together.
Angelique, as the UNICEF Goodwill Ambassador and also the founder of Batonga, an organization that's working with women and girls, help us understand how that work has influenced your understanding of the needs of women and girls, groups that are being really deeply impacted during this pandemic.
From the beginning of the COVID-19, in 2 villages in Benin, I gather the girls and the mentors together because 3 years ago, they decided they're going to start a business of soap, solid and liquid soap. And when they started this business, I said, why are you doing soap? Why can you do something more challenging? And they said to me, those young girls said to me, well, soap is at the center of our health, our well-being, because when we go to the next village, we buy the soap. When we come back home, we have to think about, are we washing the dishes, washing the clothes, or washing our hands and ourselves? So when the COVID-19 came, they were the first one that asked for the messages that we put on paper, and they went to the radio, start doing that, put the soap in the villages, talk to the head of the village, the religious leaders, their parents, and everyone, and gather the people together and put stations of water there for people to wash their hands. When you empower those women, give them the lead, they come up with ideas. The women of the market, when we sat down, when they start talking to me, they talk concrete. It's not dream, it's not making up stories, it's the life story. And that's what I want to answer to. Nothing that is gonna make me, it's not a PR stuff for me, it's about saving their lives.
Phumleze, when you look at the impact COVID-19 is having, one of the things that becomes very clear is that it's really highlighting long-standing inequities in society. Talk to me about what you're seeing when it comes to the impact COVID-19 is having on women and girls.
Hunger. Women have lost their livelihood because in the main they trade in open spaces. Being in an open space right now, you risk infections, but also in countries where a movement of people is restricted, even as we open up, it means that the places that women trade are not as easily available for them as they have been.
Angelique, to you, how do we ensure that the world builds back better and stronger for vulnerable communities?
I think I've been saying this for the last 10 years, and COVID-19 just reassured me, in my opinion, from the get-go. I believe that we've all been working in our corners and never thinking about coming all together full-blown to help really put an end to extreme poverty. That the time has come for us to put our ego on the bucket. The urgency is to prevent everything that we know. If there is a time to talk, there is a time to act, because every minute we spend talking, somebody's dying. And all I say, I'm really ready to be part of a huge coalition of action. Let's get on it, let's work for it, and let's beat COVID-19. to it.
So Eddie, you know, picking up from what Angelique was saying there, how do we use our collective voice to hold our leaders accountable, to ensure that they keep the response to COVID, the SDGs, that they keep those at the top of local, regional, national, international agendas? How do we do that?
Well, we have 10 years left. 2020 marks the 10-year countdown until the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. And what's interesting to me is that before COVID-19, SDG 3, health and wellness, was not adequately on the agenda. Before the discourse around climate action, climate itself wasn't on the agenda. Before the murder of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor, racial justice and inequality wasn't adequately on the agenda as well. So we as multilateral institutions, as activists, as humanitarians, we find ourselves catching up to the moment rather than using the instruments we have to set the agenda. And I think that this is a sobering moment for world leaders to recognize that in actual fact, it's not necessarily our multilateral institutions and our global organizations that are uniting the world. It's actually the unvarnished outrage of everyday people who are simply fed up with persistent inequality, with persistent injustice, and with being left behind. And so I think this is a moment, it's a global reckoning, I think for all of us as development practitioners, to recognize that we have been playing catch up. And if we are serious about leaving nobody behind and ensuring that we actually meet the 2030 agenda, then we need to act with urgency, and we need to rethink and reimagine the way we talk about development and humanitarian work.
Well, thank you. Thank you for that. Phumzile, Eddie, Angelique, Chebet, this is such an important conversation at a critical time. Thank you to all of you.
COVID-19 has had disastrous effects on countries the world over, and the speed with which it has travelled has been nothing short of terrifying. 3 nations worlds apart, but united in their passion to end the virus: Denmark, Barbados and Canada.
COVID-19 has shown that we are all connected, that we need to join forces to make sure that everyone has access to treatment, to vaccines, to a strong health system. Now is the time to build back better and greener, to step up our efforts to reach the SDGs so that everyone can enjoy a sustainable future, safe and in good health. This is why Denmark supports Global Goal, United for Our Future. Denmark pledges 16 million Danish kroner to the UNFPA to fight violence against women. This comes on top of our annual commitment to the UNFPA of 396 million Danish kroner and our wider COVID-19 response plan, where we support IPPF, MSI, Gavi and other trusted partners in the effort to rebuild communities. COVID-19 has shown that we are all connected, that we need to join forces to make sure that no one is left behind.
And so I talk to you from sunny Barbados in the middle of the Caribbean. We want this entire world to come together because it is only through solidarity and partnership that we will make it. We small islands know only firsthand that definitions and criteria that exclude us cannot work. So taking my per capita income from 2 years ago and determining whether that I should be allowed access to funds is as useful as taking my blood pressure 2 years ago to determine if I will get a stroke today. And similarly, using maternal mortality to determine whether I should be able to access in vitro diagnostics like tests and therapeutics and vaccine means that you are literally excluding us in the Caribbean from being able to access markets that are not perfect and the size of our orders too small to get anyone's attention. The world can do better. We can do better. Citizen by citizen, let us rise to the occasion and show COVID-19 no surrender, no retreat.
Hello everyone. Bonjour à tous. COVID-19 has changed the lives of people everywhere, and it has highlighted inequalities around the world. We have an opportunity to change that. Il faut qu'on reconnaisse que cette pandémie frappe plus fort sur des populations déjà vulnérables, alors il ne faut pas les laisser tomber. On doit travailler main dans la main pour faire en sorte qu'un vaccin soit abordable et accessible pour tous. That's why Canada joined the ACT Accelerator, and why we're pledging $120 million to ACT, with $20 million of that total for CEPI. We're also committed to working with countries around the world on how we can pool procurement efforts to make sure all countries have access to the vaccine. But as we fight this virus, we also need to take care of the most vulnerable people and address the challenges they're facing right now. So we're also investing $180 million to address the immediate humanitarian and development impacts of this crisis. None of us have been spared from the effects of COVID-19, and none of us can beat it alone. My friends, it's time to unite for our future.
Over the last few months, thousands of global citizens around the world have used their voice to call on leaders from government, the private sector, and philanthropy to step up and do everything they can to end COVID-19. But a crisis of this scale requires action on all fronts. We must think globally, but we must also not forget to act locally. Over the last few weeks, actor and supermodel Kate Upton and World Series winning baseball superstar Justin Verlander have been doing just that. The couple have been forfeiting his weekly salary since the pandemic started to support essential organizations like Covenant House, Houston Food Bank, and the NAACP Legal Defense Fund. Take a look.
The impact of COVID-19 has brought unprecedented obstacles to communities worldwide. Families and jobs have been affected, healthcare workers and first responders have been sacrificing on the front lines, and millions of people have been desperately in need of basic necessities at home.
We've been so inspired by working with several incredible organizations who are helping people in a multitude of ways, from providing food and shelter to basic hygiene items. Through their heroic efforts, we've seen so much positivity, love, and sense of community during these really difficult times.
The demand for most of these nonprofits has tripled or quadrupled since the start of the pandemic. Houston Food Bank is feeding almost 150,000 households per week. Shelters like Covenant House are providing shelter for more families and youth than ever. And Good Plus Foundation is distributing millions of diapers and supplies to families who need them most.
Mental health and connectivity of community have become more important than ever. We've ramped up our Adopt, Rescue, Heal service dog program through Wins for Warriors Foundation to adopt more dogs and pair them with members of our communities hardest hit by social distancing and isolation measures, our military veterans.
We encourage you to visit uniteforourfuture.org to learn more about the special organizations we've been working with and the ways they're giving back. Thank you to all those who are doing so much to shine a light in their communities.
UNFPA, the United Nations Sexual and Reproductive Health Agency, is proud to partner with Global Citizen and the European Union for this campaign. UNFPA is addressing the outsized impact of COVID-19 on women and girls. We express our utmost gratitude to Takeda for their contribution, which ensures that women in some of the world's poorest communities will get the care they need to have healthy pregnancies and deliver safely. We also give our heartfelt thanks to Johnson & Johnson and RB for their support to frontline health workers and maintaining maternal health services.
There is still so much about this virus that is unknown, but we do know that it affects people of color the most. In the UK, Marisha has been quarantined with her grandmother and her mother, a health worker, since the onset of the pandemic, and staying safe has been a daily struggle. This is her story.
My name is Marisha Moodley. I'm 22 years old and I live in South London with my mother, who is an NHS worker, and with my grandmother, who was visiting us from South Africa when COVID hit. It's been me and you for most of the quarantine.
Yeah, quarantine, yeah.
As someone who's in my final year of university, it's been a really difficult period. Alongside the stresses of completing work, I've also had to balance my studies with taking care of my grandmother. She's in the highest risk category, so she's had to stay at home for most of the pandemic.
My main worry is your mother. That's my main worry every day.
I'm going onto the COVID wards. I'm coming in contact with people. So I've already got that in the back of my mind, and I have that burden thinking I'm coming at home, mum is here, I'm going to face her, I have to be extra careful.
Knowing that she's coming into contact with people with the coronavirus is naturally very concerning. I think what makes it even more so is knowing the statistics in the UK that a disproportionate amount of healthcare workers who contract the coronavirus are BAME. That's even more troubling. I'm definitely worried about my family in South Africa, about whether they will have the same access to the vaccine as we would have here in the UK. Spending time with my mother and my grandmother during COVID has made me feel really grateful. It hasn't always been easy. The three of us come from 3 different generations with 3 very different people. But I'm glad that we get to face this together. For that reason, the Adi Mossam prayers that we did was really special and was really helpful. For my mother and my grandmother, it provided some sort of spiritual comfort. It was a moment that we got to spend together, a moment of hopefulness that we all shared.
I'm here now with a quintuple threat. He's an actor, writer, producer, comedian, clearly, and a licensed physician, the one and only Ken Jeong. Ken, as an entertainer and a licensed physician, which some people...
And you forgot Instagram model, but okay. But yeah, that would make me hexagonal, but it's fine. We'll fix it in edit. All right.
So given your expertise, talk to me about this moment we're in, and as we battle COVID and try and imagine a future, how you see life changing. I mean, look at it through your lens as a physician.
It's easy to get wrapped up in the details and the ever-evolving science of everything, but it's better to keep things simple. And I really think just testing and masks are really the way to go globally, because if one thinks in terms of common sense and keeping it as simple as possible in such complicated times, that's basically the best way, I believe, to approach it. Not just in entertainment, but all areas of work, as people are cautious, as economies are cautiously reopening right now.
What are some of the things that you feel people have basically gotten wrong about COVID or misunderstood about this virus?
No one is immune from this. Everyone is susceptible, right now at any age. And I think that's the main thing. And also, you're still contagious even if one is considered to be asymptomatic and positive for COVID. So there's so much we still don't know, because this is a brand new virus. It's being introduced to the world, and there's no inherent immunity to this. So it's really, really incumbent upon us to not take anything for granted right now.
Yeah, I think that's what stands out to me. The fact that, we're several months into this and still don't know so much about this. and every day seems to yield something new and sometimes contradictory to what we thought. Over the past few weeks, one thing that has emerged through this pandemic is the way societal issues have been magnified or amplified. And one issue in particular that has kind of taken on a newfound urgency is xenophobia that we have seen with this pandemic. And I want to read to you what the UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres said during the early days of the outbreak. He described the situation as a tsunami of hate and xenophobia, scapegoating, and scaremongering, frequently targeted at those of Asian descent. Give me your thoughts on what we've seen with regards to the rise in attacks on Asian people, and
we need to halt the pandemic of hatred and racism right now. We have to realize this is a global problem affecting people of all ethnicities, all races, all cultures, all ages. This is a global problem, and there's just no room for racist attacks right now, and there's no room to fan the flames of racism. Don't call it the Chinese virus. Don't call it Kung Flu. Like, what are you doing? Come on. Like, we're better than that. There's just absolutely no room for racism, no room for hatred right now, and doing all of that is just will only hinder our efforts as a world to get better. And just remind ourselves, this is a disease of humanity right now. This is affecting all of us, and we just need to cut the crap.
I absolutely agree. Ken, thank you so much.
No, thank you. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you very much.
Low-income communities, many of which are communities of color, have been disproportionately impacted by the pandemic. Bliss's mission is to forge resilient and inclusive communities of opportunity across America. And thanks to the Citi Foundation, we will help to rebuild them.
The Citi Foundation support of Bliss will help spur economic development and revitalize these communities. Let's unite for our future.
Greetings from the border region between Denmark and Germany. I'm part of the Pandemic Action Network, and we are so proud to be joining Global Citizen and the European Commission today for this inspiring event. The Pandemic Action Network connects over 30 organizations in the fight against COVID-19 and the prevention of future pandemics. Together, we can find a new vaccine, end this pandemic, and make sure that it never happens again. Mange tak. Dankeschön. Thank you very much.
Since the start of the pandemic, the terms coronavirus and COVID-19 have been synonymous with Dr. Tedros and the World Health Organization. The World Health Organization has been working tirelessly to coordinate systems around the world for months on the global response. Let's take a look.
Today, we stand united as never before by a common challenge. COVID-19 threatens not just people's health, but our common humanity. We must keep rising to this challenge. People need to keep striving to suppress transmission, from physical distancing to practicing proper hygiene. Governments must keep testing, contact tracing, communicating, and more to stop the spread. And the world must accelerate efforts to develop life-saving tools, including a vaccine. To be truly effective, vaccines, treatments, and diagnostics must be affordable and accessible to all, especially the most vulnerable. That's why WHO is working with the European Commission and other partners through the Access to COVID-19 Tools Accelerator. And we're proud to partner in today's pledging conference. By working together in a spirit of solidarity, we will save lives and defeat COVID-19.
Hi, I wanted to say how grateful we are for today. We feel fortunate to count on support from all our private partners, from pharmaceuticals to startups. Getting a vaccine against COVID-19 should not depend on where you live and where you're born. So I'm grateful to TransferWise and to the Swiss Foundation that has made a bold contribution to Gavi's advanced market commitment. Together, we will bring a vaccine against COVID-19 to the poorest and the most vulnerable. You inspire us to find solutions to drive change for everyone, everywhere.
Never in our lifetime has the necessity for global cooperation been so urgent. Coming forward now with their support to this worldwide partnership are the Serum Institute of India, one of the largest manufacturers of vaccines in the world. France, a champion in securing aid for low-income nations to fight this pandemic, and South Africa, the chair of the African Union.
On behalf of the Indian Vaccine Manufacturers Association, which I chair, and my own company, Serum Institute of India, I am proud to join Global Citizen and the European Commission in the global goal, Unite for Our Future campaign. We support the work of the ACT Accelerator in ensuring development, production, and equitable delivery of COVID-19 diagnostics, therapeutics, and vaccines. That is why I am happy to announce that the Indian vaccine industry will dedicate half of its COVID-19 vaccine production capacity of billions of doses to low and middle-income countries served by Gavi at an affordable and accessible price for all. Because your survival should not be determined by where you live in the world. Thank you.
Mesdames, Messieurs, le 24 avril dernier, avec l'Organisation mondiale de la santé, avec tous les acteurs de la santé mondiale, publics, privés, réunis pour la première fois autour de principes communs, la France s'est engagée pour lancer l'initiative ACT-A, avec 3 objectifs principaux. Le premier, accélérer la conception et la production des moyens de diagnostic, de traitement et des vaccins. Le deuxième, de garantir un accès sûr, équitable, universel à ces moyens vitaux de lutte contre la pandémie. Le troisième, de renforcer les systèmes de santé pour lutter contre le Covid dans les pays fragiles, poursuivre aussi le combat contre les autres maladies, parce que la lutte contre ce virus ne doit pas nous faire oublier tous nos autres combats. Nous avons mis sur pied en quelques semaines une alliance inclusive pour le vaccin qui permet de préfinancer le développement des vaccins avec les laboratoires qui sont les plus avancés, d'assurer son accès au plus grand nombre, au coût le plus faible, non seulement en Europe, mais aussi au bénéfice des populations les plus fragiles partout dans le monde. Aujourd'hui, c'est une nouvelle étape qui commence. Nous devons rassembler, amplifier nos efforts pour que le vaccin, les traitements, nos systèmes de santé en général nous protègent vite et mieux face au Covid. Cette action partagée est notre bien commun. Alors, mobilisons-nous. Refusons le chacun pour soi. Continuons à avancer ensemble. La France et l'Europe sont au rendez-vous aujourd'hui et continueront à l'être demain. Merci.
On behalf of the African Union, I wish to thank the European Commission and Global Citizen for bringing us together. The coronavirus pandemic has impacted every corner of the world. Now more than ever, we must step up our cooperation for better diagnostic and therapeutic medical supplies. We must also ensure that there is access to better treatment and care in the global quest for a vaccine. As the world searches for a vaccine to cure the coronavirus, we must guarantee that this vaccine is made available to all once it is developed, and that no country is left behind. Until the vaccine is developed, we should continue to share expertise and pool our resources. The Access to COVID-19 Tools Accelerator is a critical initiative that we wholly support. Let the partnerships forged in this crisis continue in the spirit of solidarity and in the cause of social justice for all. We should continue to support the efforts of the World Health Organization as it guides us through this challenging time. Someday, when COVID-19 is behind us, we would like it to be said that we, the nations of the world and the peoples of the world, stood together and acted as one to to defeat the coronavirus. Where there is unity, there is always victory. I thank you.
Seeing pledges from Denmark, Canada, Saudi Arabia, Iceland, and as you just saw, France and South Africa. It's truly amazing, and it's a testament to the advocacy work of the global citizen community, as well as artists like Coldplay, Shakira, and Miley Cyrus, who supported this campaign and will be performing in the Unite for Our Future concert just a little bit later today. So check out globalgoalunite.org for information on where you can see it. UnitAid works with partners to turn good ideas into groundbreaking solutions for global health. The impact of its partnerships can be seen in children who will never get malaria, and people who are able to learn their HIV status, in women who avoid cervical cancer, and now in their response to the COVID-19 pandemic.
Hi, my name is Janet Gennard. I'm Director of Strategy at UnitAid. We're partnering with organizations like Wellcome, Global Fund, the Gates Foundation, as well as the World Health Organization, researchers, companies, and communities around the world. We're figuring out how to produce these medicines and get them where they're needed. We're, most importantly, making sure that governments and partners can distribute those medicines in your communities so that people who need effective medicines can access them. Personally, this hasn't been easy. We're all working under extraordinary circumstances. And I don't think any of us really imagined that we'd be tackling one of the most complex and urgent public health crises working from our children's bedroom or a corner of our kitchen. But we're motivated. We're optimistic that we can do this if we work together and take bold action now. I'd like to thank Global Citizen for helping us get the message out.
At the heart of Global Citizen is marrying pop with policy to drive change. Music, as we know, is one of the most powerful agents of change. And that's something which musician, writer, and activist Daryl Davis knows a lot about. Take a look.
Hi, I'm Daryl Davis, musician and race reconciliator. Ignorance breeds fear. We fear those things we don't understand. And if you don't keep that fear in check, the fear will escalate and breed hatred because we hate those things that frighten us. If you don't keep that hatred in check, the hatred will escalate and breed destruction. So if you want to cure this virus of racism in this country, forget about the destruction, forget about the hate, forget about the fear. Go to the source, ignorance. If you cure ignorance, there's nothing to fear. With nothing to fear, there's nothing to hate. With nothing to hate, there's nothing to destroy. And the good thing is there is a cure for ignorance. It's called education. Let's spend more time getting to know one another. Hi, I'm Daryl Davis, and I want to get to know you. Thank you.
So first off, I want to thank you guys for taking the time out of your days to spend with us and have what is a really important conversation, because essentially what we're seeing is the fight of two wars, this fight against COVID-19 and the fight against racial inequality, both of which are disproportionately impacting communities of color all around the world. So Dr. Gupta, Derek Johnston, Brittany Packnett-Cunningham, I want to thank you all for being with us today. And let's jump right in. Dr. Gupta, let's start with COVID-19. Why are communities of color around the world being so disproportionately impacted?
Thanks for that question, and to all the esteemed panelists, it's such a privilege to be here. Fundamentally, this pandemic has opened for everybody's eyes the systemic inequalities to healthcare access that have existed for decades. COVID-19 is opportunistic and preys on poverty. And we know what the color of poverty is worldwide. It's Black and brown. And that is why you're seeing communities of color in the United States, in the United Kingdom, across the global South, disproportionately affected. If you're an African American male in the United States, you're 5 times more likely to die than if you're a Caucasian male from COVID-19. And simply put, there's a lot of reasons why we could talk about that, but it's healthcare access. It's us saying solutions to COVID-19 that every health expert likes to reel off the tip of their tongue. Contact tracing, which requires a smartphone. Drive-through testing, which requires having a car. Social distancing, which requires you to have a job that allows you, in many cases, to telework. All these prescriptions that I've been guilty of stating repeatedly on time and again require affluence, some degree of economic independence, some degree to say, yes, I can do these things that are expected of me. And it's just fundamentally essential workers that can't telework, they're men and women of color. And that's the problem here.
And that's why conversations like these are so important. Brittany, I want to turn to you. Talk about the trauma in your body and your mind. What does that trauma look like on a day-to-day basis? How does it manifest?
That trauma manifests in expending excessive amounts of energy that you already don't have on doing the cognitive work of trying to get through the day. I can wake up in the morning and have a number of text messages, everything from folks who need to be bailed out of jail because they were treated unjustly during protests against racial injustice, or things that are related to COVID-19, folks being ill, trying to figure out how we get groceries into the house. I kiss my Black husband in the morning and worry about when he has to go out into the world, and that fear rests in my body. I worry about my Black godchildren and what they will encounter when they go out into the world, and how their innocence can be stripped away from them even though they deserve to be children too. That trauma manifests at every single moment of every single day, and it can really serve to shrink your world, because at every turn there can be danger no matter what you have prepared for and no matter what you have predicted. Again, there is nothing wrong with my Blackness. What we are facing is the error of systems that were built to create winners and losers and to make sure that some people thrive while the rest of us struggle to survive.
Derek, I want to turn to you because as the president and CEO of the NAACP, you are working with communities of color every single day. How are you seeing this trauma manifest?
But it manifests, as Brittany just mentioned, in everything we do. The neighborhoods we live in, our ability to access banking, access to health care, living in the midst of food deserts. Therefore, the quality of our food is lacking, to say the least. A child born in a certain zip code could permanently lock that child into a life of poverty because of the quality of education that child can be provided. It reveals itself in everything we do. Its legacy is a decade and century-long problem. It's something that for African Americans, NAACP being 111 years old, we started off fighting this fight as more young people bring energy to the conversation. It's a problem. It is an epidemic within a pandemic on top of the next pandemic, and it's long lasting.
You all have seen the hundreds of thousands of people taking to the streets after the video of George Floyd's death was caught on camera. You know, let's talk about the impact of these images. The images, on one hand, are so important to record the incidents, to prove that these incidents exist, and yet we hear that replaying the images are traumatic and damaging and create what someone else called the spectacle of Black death. So how do we balance this need for protective evidence against the repetition of trauma? Brittany?
Well, I think we balance it in two ways. One, according to what we can handle mentally, especially if you identify with the person who is suffering in those videos. I have not watched the video of George Floyd being killed. I frankly didn't need to know and understand both what that pain is and to understand my responsibility as a living, breathing person to care about equity and freedom for all people and then to go do something about it. The second thing we have to ask ourselves, and this is important to balance too, is why it takes the constant showing of Black carnage and Black death for people to finally care. It shouldn't be that you have to continue to see these images in order to recognize that there are certain people who are being treated well and certain people who are not. And you have a role to play in making sure that everyone experiences justice in this world. Images of Black death are not new. We've seen the lynching postcards in America. We saw the open casket of Emmett Till in the 50s. We saw the video of Rodney King in Los Angeles, and that's just the United States of America. We've seen carnage come to Black and brown people all over this world. The question is not whether or not we need to watch another video. The question is whether or not we're finally going to get serious so that there are no more videos.
I think what's so striking about this particular movement is it is a multi-generational movement. It is a multinational movement. It is a multi-ethnic and cultural movement. But is this movement we're seeing now different than ones we've seen before?
I think so. We have always been successful when movements were intergenerational, when we valued the qualities that everyone brought to the table, whether it's the energy, the wisdom, or the continuity. And so we must put a pause there. The civil rights movement was an intergenerational movement. That's why it was successful with SNCC organizers and the mature, wise leadership of individuals like Ella Baker or Bayard Rustin, or whether it was the continuity of the Middle Age. But this time it feels a little different if we can move from protest to power, from power to policy. We are at a juncture where the messages that are being sent from some of our political leaders are negative and divisive. And because of that image, you look at the demonstrators, it looked more like America. We also see the opportunity to seize upon the political opportunity of November, understanding that people can really go to the polls and vote their values. And we should have a value of respecting all human life and dignity. But that vote is not enough. It's the starting place to really inform public policy to change where we are, not only in the United States, but across the globe.
Dr. Gupta, Brittany, do you want to jump in there? I mean, Dr. Gupta, as a medical professional, are there policies that you need to see enacted to help do your job better?
Absolutely. I think everything Derek and Brittany have said is spot on. Fundamentally, Morgan, the only way, whether you're sitting here in Washington, D.C., or if you're sitting in London, wherever you are in the world, you need people in a public health crisis to trust their elected leaders, to trust public institutions, whether that's the police, whether it's your local doctor, your healthcare system, to do the right thing. And right now, trust is at an all-time low in many cases. And here we're saying, well, we need people to opt into contact tracing, so we know your whereabouts potentially if you've been exposed to COVID-19. There's such cognitive dissonance between that expectation and where a lot of America is, especially communities of color, Black Americans, when it comes to actually wanting to trust those institutions for very good reasons. So there's that tension. And until we have elected leaders that we trust, that are messaging appropriately worldwide, you're not going to have the weapon that you need to combat COVID-19, and that's public cooperation, public trust. So this is the conversation we need to be having.
Morgan, I will just add that systemic oppression and systemic injustice around the world is cancerous to all of us. Whether you experience privilege or you experience the injustice or some combination thereof, together as a world, we are losing out on our best minds. We are silencing our most brilliant voices, and we are losing opportunities because everyone is not experiencing justice in the way that it was meant to be experienced by all people. So this affects all of us, and we should all be just as concerned with ending injustice as we are with saving ourselves and our communities. Look, we have a real opportunity in front of us. The liberation struggle, the freedom struggle across the entire world has had many, many, many chapters, from ancient times to right now, from Brazil to the Arab Spring to Ferguson. We have found connection with one another, not just in the injustices that we face, but in the possibilities that the future represents. Young and old, Black, white, brown, Asian, indigenous, trans and cis, gay and straight. We have so many folks who are coming to the table and recognizing that there is abundance present and enough for all of us to feast and to live well. So we are at a precious, precious moment where we stand on the precipice of transformation, because all of those people have figured out that we are stronger together. And if we build solutions that keep all of us in mind and are truly intersectional, then we can stop returning to the same challenges we've had of old, and we can actually get to building a world that serves us all well.
I want to thank you guys so much for joining us in this conversation. It's a conversation that I think we can all benefit from right now. So thank you so much.
COVID-19 increased social injustices that we need to tackle across the world. At SAP, we stand against racism and don't tolerate any type of discrimination. But we must do even better. We will continue to increase diversity and ensure that everyone has access to the same development opportunities. Because we must be an example of the change we are advocating.
By coming together to fight this virus, we are also working to ensure all communities have the resources to respond and rebuild, and all people have the necessary economic, health, nutrition, and educational resources needed to survive the pandemic. Joining our coalition now, Finland, with the world's youngest Prime Minister, Netherlands, a global leader on supporting vaccine development, and Italy, a nation that has shown incredible strength and perseverance throughout this crisis.
Dear friends, in Finland we believe in education. Education for everyone, everywhere, including in emergencies. That's why this year we pledged 3 million euros to education cannot wait. COVID-19 has closed down the world. Still, aid workers and equipment must reach their destinations. That's why Finland pledges 3 million euros to the World Food Programme Logistic Services. Defeating COVID-19 requires cooperation from all of us. That's why Finland is very proud of the work of the EU and to support Global Citizen and the Global Goal campaign. Thank you so much.
Liebe Ursula, on behalf of the Netherlands, let me thank you again for this new global cooperation initiative. It will speed up the development of essential COVID-19 vaccines. It will ensure they are accessible and affordable. And it will increase solidarity in overcoming the COVID-19 pandemic. I'm happy to support you. And the Netherlands wants to make an extra financial and political commitment towards international cooperation and solidarity. At the event on May the 4th, we pledged 192 million euros towards developing new tools to tackle the COVID-19 pandemic. This included 50 million euros for the Coalition for Epidemic Preparedness Innovations. At the Global Vaccine Summit 2020 on June the 4th, we committed to support Gavi with 325 million euros. I'm happy to announce we are now pledging an extra 25 million euros specifically for the procurement of COVID-19 vaccines for vulnerable countries that need them most. Because it's essential to maximize access to safe and effective vaccines around the world and to ensure that no one is left behind. Thank you.
Dear friends, if there is a lesson to learn from the COVID-19 crisis, this is the value of solidarity. Since its beginning, Italy has been a leading supporter of the global efforts to fight the pandemic. We launched the ACT Accelerator. We increased research capacity. We granted financial resources for global immunization. Recently, Italy has been a pioneer in the financing of the COVAX facility to ensure access to vaccine also to most vulnerable countries. We encourage other countries to do the same. Today, Italy commits to further accelerate global cooperation for universal and equitable access to all COVID-19 tools as global public goods. Multilateralism and the global partnership are key to defeat the virus and leave no one behind. This is a race for life. Together, we'll run faster. Thank you.
Coronavirus has affected us all.
for COVID-19 is already being tested, and many of us will benefit. However, we need to remember we are not yet tackling the most fundamental preventive measure, safe sanitation and hygiene. Globally, more than 4 billion people do not have access to safely managed sanitation services, and 3 billion lack access to basic hand-washing facilities. 1 in 3 schools and over 20% of healthcare facilities have no sanitation service, directly impacting more than 1.5 billion people. Lack of basic sanitation and hygiene in health facilities leads to poor quality care and an increased chance of infection for patients and health workers. Together we can address this crisis and reach the people who have been left behind.
The Coalition for Epidemic Preparedness and Innovations is coordinating and funding the development of 9 possible vaccines in labs around the world. Their efforts are accelerating vaccine development like never before and will give us our best chance at a safe and effective vaccine and make it available to everyone, everywhere. Take a look.
Hello. My name is Raúl Gómez Román, and I am one of several scientists working with the Coalition for Epidemic Preparedness Innovations, CEPI. CEPI is currently funding and coordinating the development of 9 vaccines against COVID-19. Of course, the biggest challenge is to do this as fast as possible. We would like to develop a vaccine within a 12 to 18 month time frame. We would like these vaccines to be safe, effective, and accessible to everyone who will need them. From a personal perspective, I would say, like me, many scientists around the globe are working away from home. Of course, we're all worried about our families, and our families are worried about us. But we are committed to our mission, and we think that this is part of our responsibility as global citizens.
As we've heard, thousands of global citizens from around the world have been taking actions since late May, calling on leaders to come to the table and commit the vital funds needed for an equitable delivery of the vaccine. Pledging their support, Singapore, who bravely took early measures to mitigate the effects of COVID-19, the Economic Community of West Africa States, a union of 15 countries known as ECOWAS, who are united in their determination to beat this virus, and Luxembourg, champions in finding therapies to fight this pandemic.
The COVID-19 pandemic continues. Until a vaccine is found, we are unlikely to see a return to our pre-COVID-19 way of life. Initiatives like this, Global Goal Unite for Our Future Pledging Summit, are an important part of the solution. Vaccine multilateralism is crucial to coordinate an international response. Singapore looks forward to working with the European Commission and like-minded countries, as well as the WHO, CEPI, and Gavi, to develop vaccines and distribute them fairly and expeditiously to people in all countries. We also hope to collaborate with like-minded parties to support key initiatives like the Access to COVID-19 Tools Accelerator, the ACT Accelerator, and the COVID-19 Vaccine Global Access Facility, or COVAX, as friends of the facility. Together, we can overcome this crisis of our generation and emerge stronger.
The Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS, is committed to promoting human capital for the people of West Africa by prioritizing quality education and skills development, health, food and nutrition, clean water, sanitation and hygiene, as well as gender equality across the region. To this end, the ECOWAS Commission solemnly commits to spend $15 million for education and skills development over the next 5 years, starting in 2021. In addition, we also commit to spend $10 million to advance human capital development in our 15 member states as from 2021.
Dear Ursula, dear friends, global citizens, we are reaching the end of this pledging marathon initiated by the European Commission in May this year, and I'm glad to be able to be with you again today. With total contributions of nearly 10 billion euros mobilized, this initiative has been a great success. And thankfully so, because a crisis of this magnitude requires a common approach based on solidarity between all the countries. And my country, Luxembourg, was committed to this from the outset. An effective and safe vaccine against the virus is our best bet to overcome the pandemic. We have to act fast to scale up investments in vaccine development, manufacturing and deployment. That's why I'm proud to announce that Luxembourg will contribute an additional 800,000 euros for the COVID Therapeutics Accelerator. I hope you join us. Let's all unite around this global goal for our common future. Thank you.
The Therapeutics Accelerator is coordinating critical research and development efforts, removing barriers to drug development, and scaling up treatments to address the COVID-19 pandemic. It's providing fast and flexible funding at all stages, from discovery and development to manufacturing, reducing risk across the process and ensuring treatments can reach everyone who needs them, particularly the most vulnerable. Take a look.
My name is Helen Rees and I head the Reproductive Health and HIV Institute at the University of Witwatersrand in Johannesburg. Our focus work is on HIV, vaccines and reproductive health, but we've now expanded that to COVID research and implementation. We're involved with the Crown Coronation Study, the Solidarity Therapeutics trial and in vaccine studies. One thing that's really struck me about this pandemic is the impact that it's had on healthcare workers. Many of my own staff have been rediverted to working in the field and in clinics, and some of my own family members are in the front line. I think we underestimate the mental strain that those healthcare workers are taking, and we really do need to support them, perhaps more than we'd ever anticipated.
The Minderoo Foundation in Australia is supporting the International COVID Data Alliance with the Gates Foundation, Wellcome and other partners to share critical data to fight and defeat the COVID-19 pandemic.
The only way we're going to get through this disease is through collaboration.
We must ensure all the world's medical researchers share vital knowledge, not only for COVID-19, but future diseases and pandemics.
Let's make collaboration the new normal. Let's unite for our future.
One of the areas most transformed by the COVID-19 is education. That's why during this pandemic, Horizon has extended our long-term commitment to teachers and students to give them the tools necessary.
So next week, can you remember what
Today, we are continuing our commitment to education by supporting Education Cannot Wait. We're proud to be part of the Global Citizen Movement.
Okay, joining us now is Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, who is the chair of Gavi, Gail Smith, the president and CEO of the One Campaign, and Andrew Whitty, who's a special envoy for the World Health Organization. Dr. Ngozi, let me start with you. $8.8 billion that you've raised. Tell me more.
Well, thank you. This is a fantastic success of the Gavi replenishment, which took place on June 4th. We were seeking 7.4 billion, and we were very, very grateful to get 8.8. These resources are going to go for two sets of things. One is to take care of our regular immunization programs in the over 70 countries that we work in. And in the next strategic period we're entering is to immunize 300 million more children and to save 8 million more lives. and that would take up the bulk of these resources. We also now have resources to work on the COVID-19 vaccine, and we're hoping to use that to launch a series of investments using an instrument we call the Advanced Market Commitment to incentivize manufacturers to make enough doses for low and middle income countries that we work in.
Andrew, you spent your career working in the pharmaceutical industry, and we have seen some extraordinary things in the past months in response to the coronavirus. Describe the kind of, I guess, things that you never thought you'd see in terms of cooperation and working towards solutions.
Listen, thanks very much for the opportunity. And we have seen unprecedented cooperation between industrial partners, biotech companies, government, universities, all with the goal of trying to advance both treatments as well as vaccines as rapidly as possible. Typically, you'd expect a vaccine development against a new virus to take 10 or 15 years, with many failures on the way. Clearly, what the world is hoping for is that that can be achieved in a tenth of the normal time, or even quicker than that. That's going to require an enormous amount of good luck, and it's going to require an enormous application of scientific skills. And I think companies and universities all recognize that no single organization hosts all of that capability to do this kind of thing so quickly. So you really have to bring together different teams of people. You have to quickly figure out ways in which they can work together and really drive toward the mission. Now, the organization or the effort that Ngozi just referred to in terms of a global coalition is trying to bring government, other philanthropic organizations together to raise significant funding to help turbocharge all of those scientists to be able to do their work in just a fraction of the normal time. It's important to realize there's no guarantees in this mission, though. This is a really, really difficult thing to try and achieve. We're all giving it our absolute best shot, but there are no guarantees.
Gail, you worked on the US response to the Ebola crisis back in 2014. Have we learned lessons, do you think?
I think we've learned some. I'm not sure we've learned enough. One of the lessons, and I think this gets to Andrew's point, is that scientists around the world, across organizations, businesses, governments, tend to collaborate in these crises regardless of what else may be going on. I think the other thing we did learn is something about vaccines. In that case, there was a push to quickly develop a vaccine for Ebola, and we've seen outbreaks since in the Democratic Republic of the Congo, where that's proven to be a very important thing. I think the big takeaway here is on this issue of global vaccine equity. And the beauty of this moment, as difficult as it may be, is that science and fairness are coalescing. We need to make sure vaccines are available to everyone, but it's also really good science to do that, because that's the only way to end the epidemic. We can't end it somewhere if we don't end it everywhere.
Dr. Ngozi, I'm going to ask you the kind of question, the kind of impossible question that people like me often ask. This, I guess, in a way, is a race between the virus and the science. Which side is winning right now?
That's a really, really tough question. I want to say that I'm seeing incredible progress on the science that we've never seen. You know, so whilst the virus is ravaging in many countries, and, you know, some people might say the virus is winning because of the number of cases we're seeing. In some places, Latin America is doubling every couple of weeks. In Africa, the same. But the science is racing, and we've never seen it move so fast. So I'd like to say, hopefully, if we take a little bit of a medium-term view, that the science will win.
And you're pushing for that. Andrew, one of the crucial points with this, and can you speak to this, is that push to get the manufacturing in place. This risky idea that you start the manufacturing before knowing for certain that you're producing the right thing.
Well, so to a large extent, that's a financial decision. You know, that is a financial risk you can take, and obviously you can make you can get that wrong. I think we don't have to do that in all cases. I think the key is to make sure we have a highly responsive, very elastic manufacturing capability ready to go. I also hope that we'll end up with more than one vaccine. I think we'll have a number of different vaccines from a number of different platforms if we have success. So being able to really expand at rapid pace that capability, I think, is a key to the whole global equity situation. Clearly, the more hundreds of millions or billions of doses of capacity we're able to rely on if and when we get a vaccine, the more we're going to be able to accelerate the availability of these vaccines on a worldwide basis. I also think, to the question you asked earlier, it's super important to recognize that from a health welfare as well as an economic welfare, no country can be an island in this situation. It's not great to be, the one country who's safe if all of the people you trade with are still struggling, because the trade is not going to be there. So however you look at this, whether you look at this as a humanitarian, whether you look at this as an economist, the right strategy, really the right strategy, is to invest in a portfolio of science and research vaccine opportunity, and then to invest in the vaccination of the global population together. And that's how we're going to see not just the economic benefit of that, but more crucially, the health benefit of that come through much more quickly.
Gail, that even in our haste to get to a vaccine, to try and find a solution, and we all want that so much, it's really important to remember that safety is crucial too. We have to get it right.
That's absolutely true. And one of the challenges in moving as quickly as we are is to make sure that a vaccine is safe and effective. And so the importance of having multiple vaccines available matters a great deal. Some are going to be easier to deploy in some settings than others. But that's why our scientists advocate that there's got to be a period as quickly as we are moving to test and check for both safety and effectiveness. And I'm confident, based on my experience working with scientists and experts who worked on the Ebola vaccine, H1N1 and others, that there's a real commitment there to making sure that vaccines aren't deployed before we've got sufficient confidence that they are safe and effective. But it's a key step. It's one we can't skip.
And for you, Ngozi, and for each of you, I'm going to ask you the same question, and I guess in some ways it's not an easy question. What is your key message to governments? And if I'm sitting at home watching this and kind of trying to figure out what I can do as an ordinary citizen, what can I do? How can I be supportive of this program?
I think an ordinary citizen, civil society can be supportive by urging governments to support the effort that will help to solve the problem of COVID-19 sustainably. What is the reason? You have to urge your government to be an actor, because it will only cost some billions of dollars to do this now. If we don't support this program of the ACT Accelerator and the COVAX facility and the efforts to get a vaccine, we will have to pay trillions of dollars later in costs, which is what has happened now. Trillions in economic costs because we could not spend billions now to find the right approach to solve the COVID-19 problem. So, dear citizen, dear civil society, make sure you put pressure on your government to be an actor and to invest in this.
What I would say to governments, I think the key thing is that none of us are safe until all of us are safe. And I think citizens everywhere, join your local organizations, Global Citizen, the One Campaign, any of us, sign the petitions, take the actions, because the truth is, when governments start hearing from enough people, they start paying attention. And if they want to save lives, and if they want to save money, and if they want to send a signal now that in a fragmented world we can unite to defeat one of the greatest threats we've ever faced, then we've got to work together. We've got to join as one. We've got to make sure that everybody is safe in order that any of us be safe. So reach out, make sure they hear from you, and hear from you often.
That's great, guys. Thank you so much. And I think the worst thing that could happen would be for developed countries to think that they've managed to control the virus and then not do the work to ensure that we have a solution for everyone around the world. And I know you're all really committed to that. So thank you, all of you, for joining this conversation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
COVID-19 is the first truly global crisis in living memory. UNICEF is protecting the most vulnerable children from the short and long-term impacts of the pandemic. We are providing urgent nutrition, vaccinations, education, sanitation, and other life-saving supplies. And we're helping countries build stronger systems for the future. But we couldn't do it without our partners. So thank you to Colgate-Palmolive, IHS, who have all made new commitments to this work in recent weeks. Thank you for supporting UNICEF. And thank you for supporting children.
One of the most important steps in beating this virus is creating improved and equitable access to healthcare. That's why partnerships among nations is so vital in ending the COVID-19 pandemic. Take a look at these countries and how they're stepping up to do their part.
The Nigeria Center for Disease Control is happy to support this important campaign by Global Citizen to unite for our future, to raise critical funding needed to support not just this outbreak response, but to support health security in Nigeria and the rest of the world. We have to have a new thinking on how we work on health security. This new thinking has to include equitable access to funding to other resources needed for the response.
전 세계가 코로나19라는 어두운 터널을 지나고 있습니다. 코로나19 백신과 치료제 개발을 위해 EU 집행위원회와 시민단체 글로벌 시티즌이 많은 노력을 기울여 주신 점에 대해 감사 인사를 드립니다. 대한민국 정부 역시 국제적 연대와 협력에 열린 자세가 코로나19 극복을 위한 최선의 길이라고 인식하고 있습니다.
We join the call of the European Commission and the Global Citizen Organization in their global goal, Unite for Our Future campaign. Continued global solidarity is essential. By joining forces to help fund COVID-19 tests, treatments and vaccines and strengthen our healthcare systems, we can make sure that no one is left behind in this pandemic. We need further collaboration in research in the development of a vaccine against the virus. Transparent and inclusive international policies toward development, manufacturing and distribution of vaccines and medicines are a precondition for an efficient response. Future COVID-19 medical treatments and vaccines should become a global public good, accessible in an affordable, equitable and timely manner to everyone.
In the same spirit, once a vaccine is found, we will do our full part to ensure that it is made available not just to those who can afford it, but also to those who cannot. For just as this is a challenge that afflicts all of humanity, our solution must encompass all of humanity too. Thank you.
We've just seen South Korea, Japan, the UK, Spain, and Luxembourg, countries big and small, respond to the calls of thousands of global citizens just over the last few weeks and pledge their support for an equitably distributed COVID-19 vaccine. The World Health Organization has been leading the charge in the global fight against COVID-19 since we first started hearing about the pandemic on the global stage back in January. So their strategic response plan is the fastest way to get resources where they're needed most urgently and to accelerate global research and development and to really track and understand the virus, as well as ensuring frontline workers in more than 100 countries get vital equipment and also see that patients everywhere get the care that they need. Take a look.
My name is Dr. Soumya Swaminathan. I'm the Chief Scientist at the World Health Organization. We know that the solutions for this pandemic are going to come from science, whether they're new diagnostics, new vaccines, or new therapeutics. So we're working with a number of partner agencies to try to develop a new vaccine for COVID-19 that not only focuses on the development of the vaccine, but on making sure that it's available in sufficient quantities and that it's equitably and fairly distributed around the world, because we know this virus does not respect borders. It doesn't respect nationalities or rich and poor. And therefore we have to find a solution that can be used by everyone all over the world.
Fighting a pandemic requires stronger international bodies, global solidarity, and strengthened women's leadership, since they are in the majority in the front lines.
Google is extending our support for the World Health Organization, because when you want to keep your family safe in a pandemic, you need the right information fast. And that's why with Google Search and with YouTube, we partnered with health authorities around the world rapidly at the start of this crisis to get information to everyone. Today we pledge to increase and extend that support so that information on health measures, on therapies, on vaccines that's locally relevant and timely can reach everyone who needs it, including those who have less access.
It's really reassuring to see the dollars coming in from countries, philanthropists and the private sector to ensure we can all have access to a COVID-19 vaccine. Joining this global fight are St. Vincent and Grenadines, a nation whose size has not stopped them from tackling this pandemic, and the state of Qatar, a leading innovator in technology and bioscience.
The government of St. Vincent and the Grenadines supports the partnership between Global Citizen, the European Union, and Global Goal, Unite for Our Future campaign. This global partnership drives massive support to the ACT Accelerator, the 7 agencies working to produce tests, therapeutics, and vaccines for the COVID-19 pandemic. We emphasize the global partnership, fair and effective allocation of resources and of the vaccines when it becomes available, universal treatment, especially for those who suffer most from this dreaded disease. We are in support. Thank you.
On behalf of the State of Qatar, I would like to express my gratitude to the European Commission and Global Citizen for their leadership in launching the Global Goal Unite for Our Future campaign. The COVID-19 pandemic is not only testing our health and education systems and our economies. It also tests our values and our ability to respond urgently and with the requested solidarity across borders and boundaries. It is now more than ever that scaling up of international support and political commitment is needed to ensure access to COVID-19 tests, treatments, and vaccines for all. The State of Qatar is proud to support the Global Goal United for Future campaign and pledge $10 million to the World Health Organization in support of the Access to COVID-19 Tools Accelerator, in addition to its contribution of $20 million to the Gavi, the Vaccine Alliance.
Honorable President von der Leyen, dear friends and partners, almost 2 months have passed since a very successful coronavirus global response pledging conference. Since then, we've rushed to balance our economies and ensure our citizens' safety. As we look around the world, we are reminded that this pandemic, unfortunately, is not even close to get over and that its consequences will last for years. It is vital that we can stay on course, and efforts like the Global Goal Unite for Our Future campaign remind us that we are not alone in this struggle and that we are stronger together. Today, on behalf of the government of the Republic of Serbia, I am happy to answer a joint call by Global Citizen and President Ursula von der Leyen. Serbia will pledge €100,000 for vaccine research and development. Dear friends, stay strong, but be careful as well. Thank you.
Around the world, safety measures to help keep COVID-19 from spreading are being implemented. But in places like the Black Townships of South Africa, where entire families live in one-room shacks, basic precautions like social distancing are nearly impossible. Here is Libo's story.
Hello, my name is Kelebogile Pulwana. I am 18 years old. I live in Hout Bay, a township in Cape Town. This is my family of 3, and this is where we stay. I think the biggest challenge for us right now is definitely social distancing. It is so hard to keep a distance. It's almost impossible, especially when you're a family of 3 living in a one-room house. What I'd like people watching this to know is, in SA, we live in such small communities with less resources. We have uneducated people and people who choose to ignore the safety measures, making this virus spread more faster. I haven't had any access to any COVID-19 testing yet, and I am so concerned about my education, as I haven't applied for tertiary yet. And I'm also worried that I might not be able to get in next year, as this whole COVID-19 will probably still be going on. I'm like so worried. My hopes for the future is, I really hope that they find a vaccine. And other than that, I just hope that I'll be able to further my studies and become a teacher.
The world hasn't faced anything on the scale of the COVID-19 pandemic in the 75-year lifespan of the United Nations. That's why the coordination of international response is more critical than ever before. The UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres is here to tell us how the global community is working together to fight this virus.
The COVID-19 pandemic is the quintessential global challenge, affecting every person, every economy, and every corner of the globe. The United Nations is mobilizing to save lives, ease suffering, and recover better, with a special focus on the world's most vulnerable people and countries. More than ever, we need the World Health Organization, global unity and partnerships, like the one between the European Commission and Global Citizen, to ensure that new COVID-19 diagnostics, therapeutics, and people's vaccine are safe, effective, and affordable. Most importantly, they need to be fully funded and immediately accessible to all. No one is safe until everyone is safe. This will be a test to our values and humanity. Thank you.
Today, Global Citizen has partnered with the EU, joining forces and galvanizing leaders from around the world to provide equal access to tests, treatments and vaccines, particularly among the most marginalized communities, helping make that dream a reality. Switzerland, the longtime home of pharmaceutical innovation, and Germany, who is set to take over the European Union presidency on July 1st.
The COVID-19 pandemic is a stress test for our solidarity. Commodity prices collapsed, the manufacturing industry was frozen, remittance flows were reduced, and basic food prices exploded. And for families living in the informal economy, a total lockdown means economic suffocation and hunger. The resilience of communities and their health systems are essential. In addition to investing into diagnostics, therapies and vaccines and the global emergency response, Switzerland has rapidly supported health systems in countries like Moldova, Nepal, Tunisia, Chad and Tanzania. Today, we join the Unite for Our Future campaign. On top of the 370 million euros already announced, we are pledging an additional 20 million euros implemented locally through the World Food Programme, UNICEF, United Nations Development Programme and the United Nations Population Fund. We must seize this opportunity to assert our common humanity.
Sehr geehrter Gastgeber, Exzellenzen, sehr geehrte Damen und Herren!
Impfstoffe, Tests und Medikamente müssen für alle Menschen auf der Welt verfügbar, bezahlbar und zugänglich sein. Wir sind schon ein gutes Stück des Weges gegangen, aber wir sind noch nicht am Ziel. Wir brauchen noch stärkere globale Anstrengungen. Deutschland stellt deshalb noch einmal 383 Millionen Euro bereit, zusätzlich zu den am 4. Mai zugesagten Mitteln. 150 Millionen Euro davon haben wir für den Krisenreaktionsmechanismus des Globalen Fonds vorgesehen. Wir müssen den Menschen in den Entwicklungsländern helfen, die Folgen der Pandemie zu bewältigen. Dafür wird Deutschland das Krisennetzwerk von Global Citizen mit 233 Millionen Euro unterstützen. Wir können die Corona-Pandemie und ihre Folgen nur gemeinsam meistern. Deutschland wird sich weiter tatkräftig einbringen. Ich danke Ihnen sehr für Ihr Engagement und wünsche dieser Geberkonferenz viel Erfolg.
Two European powerhouses there coming to the table to support this effort. And here's a look at all of the countries who are working to advance the treatment and testing for a COVID vaccine. Aisha is now joined again by President von der Leyen and Global Citizen CEO Hugh Evans for a recap on what we've seen today and what's coming up next.
Thank you, Morgan. And we're joined once again by the President of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, and Global Citizen co-founder and CEO Hugh Evans. Good to be with both of you. President von der Leyen, if I could start with you. Quite simply, what was achieved today?
Our goal today was to raise money for vaccines, tests, and treatments to beat coronavirus. And we did it. I mean, I just got the information that we raised an incredible amount of money. And this is fantastic. I'm blown away. Many, many, many thanks to all who contributed. And this money really makes a difference. But we got even more than that. We got so much encouragement, enthusiasm, and support. And this amazing pledging marathon is a touching and tangible moment of unity between citizens, governments, philanthropists, health organizations, and business leaders. They all vowed to help rebuild our communities in a fair and just way. And from my side, I promise that Europe is in this for the long haul. We will stay committed to this noble task, and we will use all of our convening power for the common good.
That is so good to hear, Madam President. Hugh, turning to you, can you speak to the importance of the political pledges that were made today in support of equitable access to medicines by lower income countries?
Well, thank you, Aisha. We are incredibly excited by the impact we saw at today's summit. From the pledges to over 250 million vaccine doses reserved for low-income countries, this was a remarkable result. And we had over 30 governments come together to support the ACT Accelerator plan to help stop COVID-19 and also agree to put health workers and the most vulnerable first, irrespective of where they live. This is a historical showing of international support for ensuring that COVID-19 tests, treatments, and an eventual vaccine are made available to everyone, everywhere. Madam President, what are your thoughts?
Well, I think we need these commitments. They are a strong message against health egoism and for unity and solidarity. And this is also a signal of hope for the vulnerable countries. There is a strong alliance out there to beat this virus together.
Madam President, this was the week that you actually launched the blueprint to end this pandemic and possibly prevent, the next one. I think the key thing on everyone's minds is what needs to happen next.
Well, now we have to deliver. That's hard work, but it's good work. But please, Aisha, give me the opportunity to thank all those who contributed to make this happen. The foundations, the co-hosts, France, Germany, the United Kingdom, and South Africa. And I want to thank from the bottom of my heart, Global Citizen and you, Hugh Evans, for the tremendous work you did. You set up a wonderful concert to honor the millions of silent heroes. Those who have worked tirelessly during the pandemic, the health workers, the cashiers, the lorry drivers, the volunteers, just to name a few. Thank you. Tonight's concert is also for you. And now I hope that everyone can relax and enjoy. Tomorrow, work will start again. The money we raised is a huge sign of faith. We still have a long way to go to defeat this virus, but together we will make it.
I couldn't agree more, President von der Leyen. It is a time for global unity. And Hugh, President von der Leyen then mentioning the concert, there's a great deal of excitement around it. What can we look forward to?
Thank you, Aisha. The concert tonight is an important reminder of the power of our voices as citizens. And I want to start by commending President von der Leyen for her tremendous leadership driving this campaign. And I want to also acknowledge the amazing work behind the scenes of Global Citizen staff and volunteers who've worked tirelessly to pull this all together. I can't wait for you to see the incredible performances, the special guests, the messages of hope and equity, of the world standing together to tackle the inequities in healthcare around the world so that we can defeat this virus together. To all those tuning in tonight, your continued pressure is essential to ensure our world leaders follow through on the promises they made today to put the most vulnerable first as we work to build our world back better with freedom and justice for all. We hope you'll all tune in with us this evening.
Thank you, Hugh. I know it's going to be a great night. I want to also say thank you to President von der Leyen. Thank you for the work that you are both doing. Katie Couric, back to you.
Wow, what an incredible effort and result. I'd like to say a big thank you to Global Citizen and President von der Leyen for driving this forward. My colleagues Aisha, Malika, Morgan, and Keir, and all the leaders from government, private sector, and philanthropy who came together for this, and the thousands of global citizens around the world who used their voice to call on those leaders to pledge. It's a long road ahead, and the battle against this pandemic is far from over. But as we've seen today, everyone is in this together. To play us out now and featuring some of the incredible heroes from the front lines of the pandemic, please make some at-home noise for the incredible John Legend.
I don't wanna think about nothing, just watching you dancing. Feel like the beginning of something. And in the end, all I wanna do is just fall in. I don't wanna think about nothing. Everybody got so much to say. Every time we push it away, every day a new reason to stay.